understood. I'll provide it in 4 parts, about 1,000 words each, with a powerful hook. Emotional, motivational storytelling style. Inspired by Steve Harvey's relationship wisdom, not impersonating or quoting him. No headings or directions. Natural flow from beginning to end. Ready for YouTube voiceover. Chunk 1. Have you ever looked at someone who walked away and wondered why they still keep finding excuses to stay connected to your life? Why they suddenly like an old photo, ask mutual friends about you, or appear exactly where they know you'll be? Here's what most people get wrong. When someone truly wants you back, they rarely announce it. Pride gets in the way. Fear gets in the way. Ego tells them to stay silent. But emotions? Emotions always leave fingerprints. And if you know what to look for, you'll see them everywhere. The biggest mistake people make after a breakup is believing silence means someone has moved on. Silence doesn't always mean peace. Sometimes silence is the loudest battle a person has ever fought. A man who secretly wants you back may never send the message you expect. He may never say, "I miss you," but his actions will quietly reveal what his words are too afraid to admit. People can hide their feelings, but they struggle to hide their patterns. The heart always leaks through behavior. That's why you should never chase explanations. Watch actions. Actions are honest even when words are carefully rehearsed. When a man secretly wants another chance, the first thing that changes is his curiosity. Suddenly, he wants to know how you're doing. Not directly, because that would expose his heart. Instead, he'll ask mutual friends. He'll notice your social media activity. He'll wonder where you've been and who you've been spending time with. It isn't just curiosity. It's emotional attachment refusing to disappear. Here's something powerful to remember. Nobody checks on a chapter they've truly closed. People revisit what still lives inside them. If he's quietly checking your life, it's because a part of him never really left. Another thing you'll notice is that he'll create unnecessary reasons to reach out. Maybe it's a random question he already knows the answer to. Maybe it's returning something that could have waited forever. Maybe it's sending you a meme that reminds him of the past. On the surface, these moments seem casual, but underneath, they're opportunities. Opportunities to reopen a conversation without risking complete rejection. Why? Because vulnerability is terrifying. Many men would rather invent a reason to text than admit they're lying awake, wondering if they lost the best woman they ever had. And here's where many women misunderstand the situation. They think, if he really wanted me back, he'd just say it. Life isn't always that simple. Sometimes people carry regret heavier than they carry confidence. Regret whispers, "Go fix it," ego whispers. What if she says no? Fear whispers, "What if she's happier without you?" Those voices create hesitation, and hesitation creates mixed signals. That's why emotional intelligence matters. You don't just hear what someone says. You notice what they repeatedly do. If he secretly wants you back, you'll also notice he starts becoming the version of himself you always hoped he'd be. Remember those conversations where you begged him to communicate better? Suddenly he's more patient. Suddenly he's working harder. Suddenly he's focusing on his goals. Suddenly he's posting less drama and more growth. Coincidence? Not always. Sometimes losing someone becomes the wake-up call that comfort never could. Pain has a strange way of forcing growth. People often change after they've experienced the consequences of staying the same. The question is whether they're changing because they've truly evolved, or because they're simply trying to win you back. There's a difference. Real growth doesn't happen overnight. It's consistent. It's quiet. It doesn't demand applause. It simply becomes visible over time. Watch consistency, not performance. Someone pretending will eventually become tired. Someone transformed won't. Another powerful sign is how he reacts when he hears you're doing well. A man who has genuinely moved on feels peace hearing that you're happy. A man who secretly wants you back experiences something different. He becomes restless, not because he wants you to suffer, but because he realizes someone else might experience the happiness he once had access to. That's when regret becomes louder than pride. He starts replaying memories. He remembers conversations he ignored. He remembers moments he took for granted. He remembers your loyalty, your patience, your kindness. Funny how people often recognize value most clearly after losing access to it. Life teaches expensive lessons. Sometimes the price is the person you thought would always stay. Here's another truth people rarely discuss. If he secretly wants you back, he won't completely disappear from your world. He'll leave little reminders of his existence. Not enough to force himself into your life, just enough to make sure you're reminded that he's still there. It could be a birthday message, a congratulations text, a reaction to your achievement, a simple, hope you're doing well. Small messages often carry big emotions because the words may be short, but the courage required to send them wasn't. Now be careful. Don't mistake breadcrumbs for commitment. Interest is not the same as intention. Someone can miss you and still not be emotionally mature enough to build a healthy relationship. Missing you isn't enough. Loving you isn't enough. Wanting you back isn't enough. What matters is whether they're willing to become the person capable of protecting the relationship this time. That's the standard, not promises, not chemistry, not nostalgia. Growth. Real love doesn't just apologize, it improves. And improvement is always louder than empty words. Many people confuse loneliness with love. When life gets difficult, anyone can miss familiarity. But someone who truly wants you back doesn't just miss your presence. He misses your value. He misses the peace you brought. He misses your encouragement. He misses your belief in him. He misses the way life felt when you were standing beside him. That's a completely different emotion. Never allow loneliness to convince you that someone deserves another chance. Only transformation earns access to a new beginning, because if nothing has changed, nothing will change. And that's the trap so many people fall into. They return to the same person expecting a different story while ignoring that the characters never actually grew. Real reconciliation begins with real transformation. And that's exactly where the next signs become impossible to ignore. One of the clearest signs that he secretly wants you back is that he begins protecting the image you have of him. Even when you're no longer together, he suddenly cares about what you think. He wants you to hear about his progress instead of his mistakes. He wants you to know he's becoming more responsible, more focused, more emotionally aware. Why? Because deep down, he hopes that one day you'll look at him and see someone different from the man who let you go. People don't invest energy into changing your opinion unless your opinion still matters. And that's something many people overlook. If your presence no longer meant anything to him, he wouldn't care whether you admired him or forgot him. But when he secretly hopes for another chance, your respect becomes valuable again. He wants to rebuild the trust that was broken. Even if he's too afraid to ask for forgiveness directly, you'll also notice that he becomes strangely supportive of your success. At first, this seems confusing. You post an achievement, and he's one of the first people to congratulate you. You accomplish something important, and somehow he hears about it. Instead of disappearing, he quietly celebrates your victories. Why? Because real feelings don't suddenly turn into hatred. If he still cares about you, seeing you succeed brings mixed emotions. He's proud of you, but he's also reminded that someone else could now enjoy the amazing person he once had. That's a difficult reality to accept. Sometimes life doesn't punish people immediately. Sometimes the punishment is watching someone you lost become everything you always knew they could be. Nothing hurts more than realizing you gave up too soon. There's another behavior that's easy to miss. He starts comparing everyone else to you. He may never admit it, But no matter who he meets, something feels different. Someone might be beautiful, someone might be funny, someone might be successful, but they don't laugh the way you laughed. They don't understand him the way you did. They don't bring him the same sense of comfort. That's when memories become dangerous. Because memories have a way of editing reality. They highlight the smiles and soften the arguments. They replay the best moments while hiding the painful ones. That's why people often confuse missing someone with being ready for them again. Be careful. Missing the memories doesn't automatically mean someone is prepared to create a healthier future. A second chance should never be built on nostalgia alone. It should be built on wisdom. Another powerful sign is how he reacts when someone else shows interest in you. Even if he has no right to feel jealous, emotions don't always follow logic. Suddenly, he asks subtle questions. Who's that? Are you seeing someone? You seem really happy lately. He isn't asking because he's curious. He's asking because uncertainty makes him uncomfortable. When someone secretly wants you back, the idea of losing you forever becomes real the moment another person enters the picture. That's when hidden emotions become impossible to control. But don't mistake jealousy for love. Jealousy simply proves attachment. Love proves itself through responsibility. Anyone can become jealous. Not everyone is willing to become better. Never let someone's fear of losing you replace the work they should have done while they still had you. You deserve consistency, not panic. You deserve effort, not regret. You deserve someone who values you before they're forced to imagine life without you. Here's something incredibly important. If he secretly wants you back, he'll start listening differently. Conversations become deeper. He remembers little details you mention. He notices changes in your life. He pays attention to things he once ignored. Why? Because people naturally become more attentive when they fear losing something valuable. Attention is one of the purest forms of respect. When someone listens carefully, they're silently saying, "You matter." Think back to the beginning of your relationship. Remember how every conversation felt important? Remember how he noticed everything? When feelings return, that level of attention often returns too. Not because he's pretending, because emotions naturally sharpen focus. Another sign appears through accountability. This one separates emotional maturity from emotional manipulation. Instead of blaming you for everything, he begins admitting where he went wrong. No excuses, no pointing fingers, no saying, "You made me do it." Instead, he says things like, "I should have handled that differently. I understand why you were hurt. I wasn't the man you deserved." Those words carry weight because responsibility is uncomfortable. Immature people protect their pride. Mature people protect the truth. If someone genuinely wants another chance, they'll stop rewriting history just to protect their ego. Growth begins the moment excuses end. And here's something many people never consider. Real apologies aren't measured by tears. They're measured by change. Anyone can cry. Anyone can promise. Anyone can say they'll never repeat the same mistake. But only disciplined people consistently behave differently. Never judge someone's future by the emotion they display today. Judge it by the habits they maintain over the next several months. Feelings are temporary. Character is revealed over time. If he secretly wants you back, he'll also become surprisingly patient. Instead of demanding instant forgiveness, he understands that trust isn't rebuilt overnight. He stops rushing. He stops pressuring. He allows space for healing because deep inside, he knows he can't erase the past with one emotional conversation. Trust is rebuilt through hundreds of small moments. One honest conversation, one kept promise, one consistent action, then another and another. That's how broken foundations become strong again. Brick by brick, day by day, not through grand speeches, but through quiet consistency. Another thing you'll notice is that he respects your boundaries in a way he never did before. He doesn't force conversations. He doesn't guilt trip you. He doesn't manipulate your emotions. He understands that real love never demands access. It earns it. That's the difference between possession and partnership. Possession says, you belong to me. Partnership says, I want to deserve you. One controls, the other grows. Always choose the person who's willing to earn your trust instead of expecting it for free. And perhaps the most powerful sign of all, he no longer tries to convince you with words alone. He lets his life speak, his discipline speaks, his consistency speaks, his peace speaks, his emotional maturity speaks, because he understands something that many people never learn. Words create hope. Actions create belief. Anyone can promise forever during an emotional moment, but only genuine transformation can make those promises feel safe again. That's why the strongest message a man can send isn't please come back. It's becoming someone whose actions naturally make you wonder whether this time things could finally be different. And that is where the deepest proof begins to reveal itself. In the final signs, you'll discover the quiet behaviors that expose whether he truly wants to rebuild a lasting future or whether he's only chasing the comfort of what he lost. There comes a moment when feelings stop hiding behind excuses, a moment when the heart grows tired of pretending it doesn't care. If he secretly wants you back, that moment begins to reveal itself in ways that are impossible to fake. Not through dramatic speeches, not through endless promises, but through the quiet decisions he makes when nobody is watching. One of the strongest signs is that he begins investing in his future instead of simply talking about it. He starts taking better care of himself. He becomes more disciplined. He works harder. He focuses on his health. He becomes more intentional with his finances. He starts building a life that reflects maturity rather than comfort. Why? Because deep down, he understands something important. The version of himself that lost you may not be the version capable of keeping you. Real love inspires growth, not because someone demands it, but because losing someone valuable forces you to face the parts of yourself you've ignored for too long. Pain has a way of exposing truths that comfort keeps hidden. Sometimes heartbreak becomes the greatest teacher a person will ever have. Another sign is that he stops trying to impress everyone else. Instead, he begins focusing on becoming someone he can genuinely respect. There's a difference. Many people chase attention. Very few chase character. Attention fades, character remains. If his decisions are no longer about proving something to the world, but about becoming a better man, that's a transformation worth noticing, because confidence built on validation is fragile. Confidence built on discipline lasts. You'll also notice that he becomes more emotionally available. In the past, difficult conversations may have ended with silence, anger, or avoidance. Now he listens. He asks questions. He wants to understand instead of defend. That's emotional maturity. It's easy to love someone when everything feels perfect. It's much harder to stay present when uncomfortable truths enter the conversation. The strongest relationships aren't built by avoiding conflict. They're built by learning how to face conflict without destroying each other. If he's truly changed, you'll notice he no longer treats disagreements like battles. He treats them like opportunities to understand. That's the behavior of someone who values the relationship more than winning the argument. Another quiet sign appears in the way he speaks about the past. He doesn't rewrite history to make himself look innocent. He doesn't pretend the relationship failed because of only one person. Instead, he accepts his share of responsibility. That's rare, because ego always looks for someone to blame. Wisdom looks for something to learn. People who grow don't become obsessed with proving they were right. They become committed to becoming better. That's a completely different mindset. And here's something powerful. When a man secretly wants you back for the right reasons, he stops asking, how do I get her back? He starts asking, how do I become someone worthy of another chance? Those are two completely different questions. The first focuses on the outcome. The second focuses on the person. Life always rewards the second one because healthy relationships are built by healthy people. Another sign is that he becomes more consistent than convincing. He doesn't overwhelm you with emotional messages. He doesn't make dramatic declarations every week. He simply keeps showing up as the better version of himself, day after day, week after week, month after month. Consistency creates trust. Anyone can act differently for a weekend. Transformation reveals itself over time. Remember this. Temporary effort is easy. Permanent discipline is rare. Never confuse the two. If he secretly wants you back, he'll also respect your healing journey. He won't become angry because you're taking your time. He won't pressure you into making a decision before you're ready. He understands that broken trust cannot be repaired with impatience. Healing has its own timeline. Love cannot rush it. The people who truly value you understand that. Those who only value access become frustrated when they don't immediately get what they want. Pay attention to that difference. Patience often reveals intention. There's another behavior that speaks volumes. He begins protecting your peace instead of disturbing it. Think about that. In the past, he may have brought confusion into your life. Now he brings calm. Instead of creating anxiety, he creates stability. Instead of disappearing without explanation, he communicates. Instead of making you question your worth, he reminds you through his actions that you're respected. That's not a small change. That's the foundation of emotional security. A healthy relationship should never leave you constantly wondering where you stand. Love shouldn't feel like solving a mystery. It should feel like finding peace. Another thing you'll notice is that he celebrates your independence. He's no longer threatened by your success. He's no longer uncomfortable with your confidence. In fact, he admires it. Because emotionally mature love doesn't compete. It supports. It doesn't shrink your light. It encourages you to shine even brighter. Never settle for someone who feels powerful only when you feel small. The right person will never ask you to become less in order for them to feel like more. That's insecurity, not love. Here's another sign that's often overlooked. He begins making decisions with the future in mind. His words become intentional. His habits become intentional. His friendships become intentional. His priorities become intentional. Why? Because people who genuinely want something valuable stop living carelessly. They understand that every decision either builds trust or breaks it. Character is built through small choices. One honest decision, one responsible action, one kept promise at a time. Eventually, those choices become a lifestyle. And lifestyles reveal true priorities. If he secretly wants you back, he'll stop relying on chemistry alone. Chemistry can start a relationship. It cannot sustain one. Respect sustains it. Trust sustains it. Communication sustains it. Commitment sustains it. Without those qualities, attraction eventually becomes exhaustion. Many relationships fail not because love disappeared, but because emotional maturity never arrived. Love is powerful, but love without discipline is unpredictable. Love without accountability becomes painful. Love without growth repeats the same cycle. Never mistake intense emotions for lasting compatibility. The strongest relationships are surprisingly ordinary. They're built on honesty, reliability, respect, kindness. Those things don't always create excitement, but they create security. And security is what allows love to grow over decades instead of fading after months. Finally, watch how he responds when nobody is praising him. He continues growing even when you aren't watching. Does he continue improving even when there are no guarantees you'll come back? That's the ultimate test. because genuine transformation isn't performed for an audience. It's chosen in private. The strongest people don't improve because someone is clapping. They improve because they've decided they'll never become the person who caused that pain again. When someone reaches that point, they're no longer chasing approval. They're pursuing integrity. And integrity changes everything. That's when you begin to realize that wanting someone back isn't proven by how desperately they hold on. It's proven by how deeply they're willing to change without expecting immediate rewards. Because real love doesn't beg. Real love becomes better. And in the final part, you'll discover the most important truth of all. The difference between someone who truly deserves a second chance and someone who's simply afraid of living with the consequences of losing you forever. The most important question isn't whether he secretly wants you back. The real question is this: if he comes back, will the relationship be different? Or will it simply repeat the same story with a different beginning? That's the question that changes everything, because love isn't measured by how many times someone returns. It's measured by how much they've grown before they return. Far too many people confuse reunion with resolution. They believe that because two people found their way back to each other, the problems have somehow disappeared. But unresolved habits don't disappear because of emotions. They disappear because of discipline. A second chance is not a reward for missing someone. It's an opportunity earned through transformation. Never forget that if he secretly wants you back, there will come a point where he stops trying to convince you with beautiful words. Instead, he'll quietly let his life answer every question you've been carrying. You won't have to wonder if he's changed. You'll see it. You'll feel it. His consistency will remove the confusion. His patience will remove the pressure. His honesty will remove the fear. Because real change speaks in actions long before it speaks in promises. One of the greatest signs of maturity is when a man no longer expects forgiveness simply because he apologized. He understands that forgiveness is a gift. Trust is earned. Respect is earned. Another opportunity is earned. Nothing valuable is ever demanded. It's built, brick by brick, choice by choice, day after day. That's why the strongest relationships aren't made of grand romantic moments. They're built through ordinary acts repeated consistently, showing up, keeping promises, listening carefully, speaking honestly, protecting each other's peace, choosing respect even during disagreement. Those ordinary moments become extraordinary over time, and that's what lasting love really looks like. Here's something many people learn too late. Missing someone is an emotion. Loving someone is a decision. Every single day, love asks the same question. Will you choose patience today? Will you choose honesty today? Will you choose kindness today? Because feelings come and go, commitment remains. The couples who survive aren't always the ones who feel the strongest emotions. They're the ones who make the strongest decisions. If he secretly wants you back, you'll notice something else. He'll stop expecting you to carry the entire relationship. In the past, maybe you were the one fixing every argument, starting every difficult conversation, making every sacrifice, holding everything together while he simply enjoyed the benefits. But growth changes that. A mature man doesn't ask you to carry what both people should share. He becomes your partner, not your responsibility. There's a huge difference. Healthy love feels lighter, not heavier. It gives energy instead of constantly draining it. It creates peace instead of endless anxiety. You should never have to beg someone to value you. The right person recognizes your value without needing to lose you over and over again. That's why your standards matter. Never lower your standards just because someone returned. Rise your awareness instead. Look beyond the apology. Look beyond the tears. Look beyond the promises. Ask yourself, is this person truly different? Do their daily habits match their words? Have they become more patient, more honest, more dependable, more emotionally available? Because people can fake emotion for a day. Very few can fake discipline for a lifetime. And discipline is what builds trust. Here's another truth that deserves to be remembered. Sometimes the greatest act of love is giving someone the opportunity to prove themselves. But the greatest act of self-respect is refusing to ignore the evidence when they don't. Never confuse hope with reality. Hope says they'll change. Reality asks whether they already have. Your future should never depend on someone's potential. It should be built on their demonstrated character. Potential is exciting. Character is dependable. Always choose dependability. There's another lesson hidden inside every heartbreak. Not everyone who comes back deserves to stay. Some people return because they're lonely. Some return because they missed the comfort you gave them. Some return because life humbled them. And some return because they finally understand your value. Learning the difference requires wisdom. Loneliness asks, who can make me feel better? Love asks, how can I become better for the person I care about? Those questions reveal completely different hearts. Never ignore that. Pay attention to how someone treats you after the excitement fades, when life becomes ordinary again, when stress returns, when responsibilities increase. That's when true character appears. Real love isn't tested during the honeymoon. It's tested during ordinary Tuesdays, during difficult conversations, during disappointments, during seasons when life isn't easy. Anyone can be loving when everything goes perfectly. Nature love shines when things become difficult. If he has truly changed, you'll notice that he no longer runs from discomfort. He stays, he communicates, he listens, he learns, he grows. That's the behavior of someone who's protecting the relationship instead of protecting their ego. And perhaps that's the greatest transformation of all. When winning the relationship becomes more important than winning the argument, remember this for the rest of your life. Never chase someone who's confused about your worth. Never beg for consistency. Never settle for half-hearted effort simply because you're afraid of starting over. The right relationship will never require you to abandon your self-respect. Love should never cost your peace. Your value doesn't increase because someone finally realizes what they lost. Your value was always there. They simply failed to recognize it. That's their lesson, not your identity. So if he secretly wants you back, don't rush. Don't let old memories make today's decisions. Watch carefully. Listen closely. Observe patiently. Let time reveal whether his heart has truly changed. Because time exposes every mask. It reveals every intention. It separates temporary emotions from permanent transformation. If his actions consistently reflect honesty, humility, accountability, patience, respect, and unwavering commitment, then perhaps a new beginning is possible. Not because the past never happened, but because both people became wiser because of it. And if those actions never appear, walk away with confidence, not bitterness, not anger. Confidence. Because every ending that protects your peace is also the beginning of a stronger future. Always remember this. The right person will never make you question your worth every single day. They'll make you feel safe enough to become the best version of yourself. That's what genuine love does. It doesn't weaken your confidence. It strengthens it. It doesn't fill your heart with confusion. It fills your life with clarity. So never measure love by how loudly someone says they want you back. Measure it by how consistently they show they've become someone who deserves to be welcomed back. Because in the end, words may capture your attention, but only actions earn your trust. And trust, once rebuilt with honesty, consistency, and respect, becomes the strongest foundation any relationship could ever stand on.